Syria has been cut off from the global economy for over a decade. Now, a senior European Union envoy is pushing to change that. The envoy has publicly called for Syria to be brought back into the international economic system. That would mean easing or dismantling years of sweeping Western sanctions, restrictions that have locked Syria out of global banking, trade financing, and foreign investment since the early years of its civil conflict. To understand why this matters, consider what sanctions actually do to an economy. They don't just block trade, they cut off the basic plumbing of commerce. Businesses can't send or receive payments across borders. Aid money moves slowly or gets stuck entirely. Foreign companies won't invest if they risk being penalized just for doing business there. And a country trying to rebuild after years of war can't easily import the raw materials or equipment it needs. Sanctions hit all of those channels at once. Bringing Syria back into global markets wouldn't be simple. The EU can adjust its own rules, but that's only part of the equation. US sanctions carry what's known as secondary effects, meaning foreign banks and companies can face American penalties even if European rules are relaxed. So a unilateral European move would only go so far. Meaningful reintegration would require coordination with Washington and buy-in from major international lenders like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Those institutions would almost certainly require Syria to meet governance and transparency standards before extending serious support. Still, the envoy's remarks reflect a real shift in thinking inside parts of the EU's diplomatic establishment. European officials have long debated whether maintaining economic pressure actually achieves political goals, or whether it simply deepens humanitarian suffering while leaving the underlying situation unchanged. A push toward engagement suggests at least some European policymakers now believe isolation is not working. It's worth being clear about where things stand. This is a call from one envoy, not a formal policy change. Concrete action would require agreement among EU member states, coordination with the United States, and decisions by international financial institutions. That process could take considerable time, and there are no guarantees it moves forward at all. But the signal itself is worth watching. When senior diplomats begin publicly making the case for economic reintegration, it often precedes a broader policy conversation. The question now is whether EU member governments and Washington pick up that thread or let it go quiet. The practical thing to track in the weeks ahead is whether other European capitals echo this position and whether there's any movement in Washington toward a parallel review of Syria-related sanctions. Those two signals together would indicate whether this is the start of a policy shift or just a single voice in the room. This briefing is brought to you by First Financial News, clear daily coverage of the economy and markets at firstfinancialnews.com.